so glad that you're here. What if you decided to stay on the exact same path that you are on right now? What if you decided to change the direction of the path that you're on right now? I'd like you to just, for a moment, take into consideration all of the things in your life that you are not happy with. When you take into consideration all of the things that you aren't happy with, there's a reason why they're there, and they teach us a lesson. And I have this suitcase here for a reason. Baggage, right? We all have baggage. And the reason why it's called baggage is because we literally take it from one destination to the next, and it remains attached to us until we decide that it's time to unpack it. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever heard the term generational trauma, but generational trauma is so different than the trauma that we experience in our everyday life, from birth until now. Now, if you've been blessed enough to not actually experience something traumatic in your life, and you've lived a pretty copacetic life, that's phenomenal. But generational trauma is very different, and I'd like to give you an example of what generational trauma is. For simplicity's sake and time, generational trauma is very much like your grandmother taking her suitcase of pain and hurt and handing it to your mom. And your mom taking that suitcase of pain and hurt and handing it to you. And then you take that suitcase of pain and hurt. And then you choose. You decide if you're going to hand it down or not. Okay? So generational trauma is something that is not your fault. That's good news, right? I guess it depends on how you look at it. So generational trauma is something that is born into us. It's something that happens to you when your grandmother is pregnant with your mom. This is epigenetics and embryology, okay? So like I said, for a lack of time and, simplicity's sake, we're not going to get into any of that. The point of what I want to talk about today is you becoming the dragon slayer of your own life. So Trevor and Shelley had said that I felt like I had lived 10 lives in one. Oh, see, I'm not used to these little things attached to my face. And it's very true. And I'm sure that my story could be very similar to yours as well. You see, I grew up my whole entire life. First step one is learning how to unzip a suitcase. I grew up my entire life struggling to understand why I was so different from all of my friends and from even the people in my own family. Like, what was wrong with me? Why wasn't I happy, right? All my friends were happy. They just did their thing and they were happy, and I just put on a smile. So for as long as I can remember, probably roughly 11-ish, okay, I struggled from really severe depression. My parents took me to family counselors, and we went to psychiatrists, we did therapy, we did all the things, right? And every single one of them said the same thing. She'll grow out of it. She hasn't even gone through puberty yet. She'll grow out of it. Well, I didn't. So by the time I became a teenager, I then started numbing my life with drugs, alcohol, and relationships. By the time I was 19 years old, I became a mom. By the time I was 21, I had my second child, and I was also married and divorced by the time I was 22. So a lot of things going on in my life, but I decided I'm still going to give love a chance. So I got remarried, really great guy, super awesome, and then he gets cancer, and he literally takes his last breath in my arms. And it was at that moment in my life, I was not raised in a Christian home. I was not taught about Jesus, but it was in that moment, in his death, process of death, not the actual death, the process of death, my brother had come to me, and he had said, Megan, here's the deal. When you die, there's two places you go. and you get to choose. And I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And I had no idea what he was talking about, and it was awkward and weird, but I listened to him. And he said, I really think these ladies should come in and talk to him so he can accept Christ. So he accepts Christ. It was great. I felt confident that, whatever this afterlife that my brother was speaking of, was going to be where my husband was going to go. And so after he passed away, it was then that I accepted Christ. And when I accepted Christ, I realized that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves. It is not about you, and it is not about me, right? It is about so much more than that. So, not to get super weird and awkward, but I'm going to slide my little table over here. Whoa. Because I want to tell you a story. It's almost 8 years ago now, I decided that I was done living the life that I had been living, the depression life, right? The victim. That saying, well, that's just how I am, right? That's just who I am. I'm just depressed. I'll just take, medication for the rest of my life, and that will help numb the pain, and I'll be okay. I was done. I was done living this life, and I wanted more. I wanted to experience more. I wanted to actually feel something. So I had been on medication for over 20 plus years. And I didn't realize at first what it was doing to me because I was reaping the rewards of actually kind of having some sort of regulation, because before it was the extreme. I was incredibly depressed, very suicidal. But then I got these medications and they just kind of kept me even keel. But one thing I realized, sadly, really, it took over 20 years of medication, was that I had absolutely no emotion. None whatsoever. I couldn't empathize with you. Like if you had a loved one that died, I couldn't feel that pain with you. I couldn't become a part, even though I had experienced everything you can think of, I still couldn't feel with you. So when I woke up about 8 years ago and I decided that I was absolutely done living this life, because I knew there had to be a better way. And like I said, I had already accepted Christ many years before. I started deciding it's time to unpack. It's time to figure out who Megan is. It's time to get rid of the stuff I've been living with, right? And yeah, our stories and the things that we go through, they teach us something. And we can learn from them. But I was done living a life that was consumed with the victim mentality. Now, here's where I'd like to tie this into generational trauma. Generational trauma is not your fault. You're born with it, right? It's just stuff you don't know about. But if you're somebody that's actually lived a pretty copacetic, fairly even keel life with no major traumas, but yet you still suffer from depression and anxiety and low self-esteem and maybe even self-harm, things like that, there's probably a reason why, and it's not your fault. And I always talk about unpacking this stuff because hurt people hurt people. Now, you can walk through your life, the rest of your life, right? It's a choice. You can walk through the rest of your life and never heal anything because maybe you feel as though you don't have anything to heal, right? Maybe you've never experienced depression or perfectionism or anger or addiction or pride or any of these things, right? Great, that's fabulous, that's wonderful. But you're a human being, so you still have something to heal from. If you've gone through this life, there's still something to heal from. So you can go through your entire life knowingly or unknowingly hurting other people. Or you can choose to not be that person anymore. When you start unpacking your trauma, your pains, and your hurts, you then start to see that there's a completely different way that you get to live your life, that you get to interact with other human beings. I am a huge believer in leaving a legacy behind. And something very powerful that I'd like to share with you is that you are 100% in control of that legacy that you're going to leave behind, right? So either you're going to take the sword in your hands and you are going to slay the generational dragon, or you're going to take the suitcase and you're going to hand it down. That's your choice. And it's one that only you can make. And that's why I say that the power is in you. I can tell you right now that it's not an easy path to be on, the one of healing. So let's say you decide, I'm going to unpack it, right? I got some things I need to heal from. I want to start unpacking. Is it going to be hard? I'll promise you that. Is it going to be painful at times? Probably. But will it be worth it? I can guarantee it will. I can tell you from personal experience that living a life dragging around your suitcase everywhere you go and going from one relationship to the next and always wondering, what is wrong with everybody, right? All of my relationships keep failing. Everybody's so screwed up. Maybe we should take a look in the mirror, right? Because perhaps you are the only thing standing between you and another person having an awesome relationship. Now, my baggage, coupled with my husband's baggage, and yes, I did get remarried. Third time, they say, is always the charm, right? And so I got remarried 18 years ago to an amazing man. And 12 years into our marriage, remember I told you I had that wake-up moment and I decided I was done living the life I had been living? Well, that was 12 years into my marriage. So I walked into that third marriage with my childhood trauma, the generational trauma that was born into me, my first marriage trauma, my second marriage trauma, and I was expecting my third marriage to be amazing because it has to be better than the first two. Yeah, well, the first 12 years, they were okay, right? They were good. We had good years. We had not so good years. And then we came to a moment in time. It was that 7 years ago, right? When I woke up and I was like, I'm done. I don't know about you, but I got some work to do. And I started unpacking. And boy, there was a lot of strife, right? Because now we've got two people in a committed relationship where one person is choosing to leave behind the crap that they don't want to live with anymore. And the other person's like, whoa, I don't know about this. This seems like a lot of work. And it took me years to get to the point where I actually felt like, wow, I'm kind of whole. You know, like I'm kind of, and the one thing I'd like to say is that there is not a single person that is broken. No one is broken, right? We don't need to be fixed. Healing, on the other hand, is what we all need, okay? So I will leave you with this. It comes back to that what if question. What if you decide to stay just on the same exact path you're on right now? And what if you decide to get off that path and start some healing? What if you're that person that slays the generational dragon so that your friends, your circle, your children have a better legacy than the one that you are currently walking through right now? It's your choice. You're 100% in control of this, you guys, right? So what if you are the dragon slayer?